Hey guys. Okay, so I was having a chat to someone earlier this week and he basically said to me, you legit come up with your content on the fly, don't you? Like you don't have a pre-programmed list of topics that you work through, do you? I was like, nah, I literally start each and every week going, what am I going to talk about this week? And then inevitably something comes up on a job or an inquiry that makes me go, boom, that's what I'm talking about this week. So he asked me that question because he happened to be standing with me last week when someone asked, can I redevelop a brick 6-pack unit to get a higher yield, etc., which is obviously the topic that we covered off in last week's video. Now, this week's video is another perfect example of this sort of situational scenario. I was sitting there yesterday and I was putting together a slide deck for a presentation I'm doing later on today for the DAIA, Demolition Asbestos Industry Association. Boom, got it. Anyway, throwing together the slide deck for that and I went, you know what, social media peeps, they're going to like this. I need to share this with them. So today we're going to jump behind the computer and I'm going to share part of my presentation with you guys. Let's do this. Okay, so this slide here sums up what we're going to cover off today. Basically, when you trigger a DA to remove a house because the house is protected, so when it's built in or before 1946 and it's located in a TBC or traditional building character overlay, what are the chances of success? Now, to look at the chance of success, we're going to dive into some of the things that council actually looks at. So some of the rules and options you have under the planning scheme. So let's get started. If it'll click across. There we go. What's the purpose of the presentation? Well, basically it's to help people get a better understanding of how complex the whole demolition process is and how limited the chances of success are, so they don't go wasting time fantasizing about building new houses and all that sort of stuff when you can't even remove the house in the first instance. First thing you need to know is there's two separate sets of rules or requirements. There's one set of rules that applies to pre-1947 houses and one set of rules that apply to pre-1911 houses. First and foremost, let's look at pre-1947 houses. There is three separate options or avenues you can go down. First and foremost, you can argue that it has been irreversibly changed. Now, people say to me all the time, oh, the front veranda, it's been enclosed, and some windows, they've been modified. It's been changed, it's been butchered, look, it's over, we've got to demolish it. And I sit there going, sorry guys, you can reinstate that front veranda pretty easily. You can move some windows around pretty easily. That's not irreversibly changed. This right here is an example we did a few years ago for a property at Wooloowin that was irreversibly changed. So what had happened is a fire had gone through and there was basically just some bones left to the house, some framing sort of structure. They've reclad? That's not the right word. They've basically walled in the house with bricks, put tiles over the roof form, totally changed it. You look at that and there is basically nothing pre-47 looking left. That was a scenario where we were able to successfully argue that the property had been irreversibly changed. Next, it's in a non-character streetscape. So the streetscape has been modified so heavily that it no longer exhibits any pre-47 characteristics. Again, people will sit here and go, oh, but the neighbours, they've changed, or a few doors down, they've changed. That's enough, right? Yeah, I hate to break it to you guys. No, it's not. This here is a scenario, I believe we did this one earlier this year, where we were able to successfully argue that the street had changed too much. In this example, green represents post-46 houses or vacant sites that will become post-46 houses. Purple is a pre-47 relocator, and orange are the pre-1947 houses left remaining in the street. As you can see, over 3/4 of the streetscape had been changed. And I think if we were actually to look at some of those orange examples, you'd find that those houses had also been butchered. So generally speaking, or overall, the streetscape no longer had any real character to it. So it met that criteria. Now the final one here is beyond reasonable repair. And I do stress the word reasonable. Now it's been quite a few years since we've lodged one under this sort of clause here. But back last time I checked, the courts had two sort of cases in particular that we need to reference. The first one said that $312, I believe it was, per square metre was a reasonable cost. $650 for the other case was not reasonable. That space in between had yet been untested. So what you need to ask yourself is it going to cost me $650 per square metre or more to make this house good again? And when I say make it good again, I'm not talking about beautifying the house. I'm talking about structurally sound. So it doesn't cover floor coverings, wall paint, any of that extra stuff. It's basically getting the house back to a structurally sound point. It is super, super hard to argue cases in support or under this criterion. And I'll show you some examples. Or actually, before I do, people always come to me and they go, oh, Like, it's a little bit wonky, that front balustrade, yeah, it's a little bit wonky, or I can hear some termites in the wall. Like, it's beyond repair, right? No. These examples right here, you see a common theme, fire is usually the reason, are beyond reasonable repair. So they've been damaged to that point where you can't restore the house for under $650 per square metre. Again, sounding like a broken record, to take it back to that structurally sound point. I always say to people, if you want to argue under this case, it literally needs to be at a point where you do not feel safe walking into that structure. The example I had quite a few years ago, which actually wasn't a fire example for once, the owner made me sign a waiver before I entered the property to say that I acknowledged that the house was really, really unstable and could collapse at any point. So the house literally has to be at that extreme point to get through under this argument. Now, that covers off all of the pre-47 options. But when it comes to pre-1911, there is only one scenario or option or pathway that you can go down. Very similar to the previous point that I just made, but in this instance, it must be physically beyond repair. Not reasonable, physical is the key word there. Now, this example I gave here, this was one that came to us quite a few years ago. And I said to the clients, unfortunately, it's a pre-1911 house, like you can tell by the window shapes, the roof form, etc., etc. I am yet to see a pre-1911 house be approved for demolition. So I have to be honest and frank here and say, I think I'm wasting your time and money by going down the application route. You need to look at a renovation extension instead. Obviously, that news can shock some people that don't necessarily like it, specifically when they've bought it for the purpose of building a new house. So they basically went and found another town planner that would lodge the application for them. No surprises, the application got refused. They found a lawyer to go and lodge the appeal for them. And no surprises, the court made it very clear they were going to knock the application back, and they came back around to us. At that point, we talked about a renovation extension. So this is an example of a situation where it's a pre-1911 house that was disgusting. Like, I still remember walking into that place and I cringe every time I think about it. You're stepping over dead animals. You could basically hear the termites heaving in the walls. You could see the water damage through the floorboards. There was some weird satanic type ritual that had been going on in one of the rooms, like there's a chair and flame marks. It was creepy, just saying. But yes, this example here was one of those ones that I think is beyond the point of reasonable repair. But technically, it's not beyond physical repair. You can throw a bucket load of money at this house and you can take it back. And it's a prime example of a situation where someone tried to push it with council and they and the courts turned around and went, nah, does not meet that criteria. So basically, the main message or point I'm trying to get across today is if you trigger the need for a town planning application to remove a house, your chance of success is so slim. Like, if it's pre-1911 in particular, you're dreaming, it's not going to happen. That is the main moral of the story, or the point I want to get across today. Okay, I think that covers off everything I wanted to talk about. As I always say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got three. Number one, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number two, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number three, what was my number three? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.